Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Sandy Glaze. I'm a personal transformation and self-development coach, and I work with the unseen energies. Usually in emotional or spiritual energies are the energies that I work with. And although the mainstream doesn't really acknowledge these energies, they do exist, and it's because they do not acknowledge them that I think people are missing a bigger picture of what's going on energetically on the planet. So I have watched a lot of really talented people are starting to share information, and because people are willing to look outside the box, we're allowed to connect the dots. So that's what I want to share with everyone today. Is I'm going to connect some dots and show people how this works. So what I'm going to be sharing with people is I'm going to talk about consciousness-based reality. So I'm of the belief that the humans, we're organic, we're intelligent already. And because there's a certain organizations or certain groups that want to turn us into transhuman, like a transhuman agenda, they want us to be merged with AI. They're trying to push that through for us right now, but many of us don't want to go there. And so if it's by us understanding how powerful we really are, we can change that and be able to stop this as it's happening. So there's a couple of years ago, I started watching what was happening in the with all the sex ed curriculum, this new core curriculum, and I was watching what was going down in the schools and in the government offices and how it was being rammed down parents' throats. And I started looking at the different energy fields. That was really what got me started. I was looking at things before then, but that was when I started really seeing how the energy was being manipulated. And this is a copy of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. So when we look at the visible spectrum of light, there's 7 colors in it. He only has 5. He's missing the top 2 colors, which is the indigo blue, which in energetic realms refers to our intuition, our compassion, our empathy, our telepathy to know things. And the purple, which is the highest one, I'm going to show this in the next slide, which deals with our ability to connect to something greater than us and to connect to the information field outside of us, which is called consciousness. So Maslow also turns out to be a Freemason, but I didn't realize that when I created this slide. So if anybody's familiar with the Freemasons, that maybe they have a nefarious agenda for people, they'll understand the significance. So this is a slide showing the positive and shadow aspects of human chakras. Chakras is a Sanskrit word. It means wheels of energy. So there are people in the alternative consciousness fields who are starting to understand the significance of what these energy centers do. And I am going to tie this into the AI, so bear with me as I go through. I'm not going to really say too much about the chakras. You can freeze frame this if you want and be able to look at the information. So when I show the right-hand side inflow, I show the left-hand side is shadow. And shadow has 2 meanings in our messed up world. It can mean that you have some painful memories that you need to process through to be able to leave it behind, or it means that you can be an SOB because it's your shadow side, because we all have a dark side, right? So it's got a few different expressions there. I'm saying on the side of it that is just the core beliefs of what it means to be human. So I'm going to go down to the root chakra. Greed, this is what it's not in flow. So look at us as a collective, not necessarily as individuals. Greed, survival of the fittest, competition, aggressiveness, financial insecurity, abusive power, which we're seeing right now, and consumerism. So there's a push to keep us in our lowest form of energy. So when we understand this, we can look at it from like a bird's eye point of view and see it for the collective and not just as the individual person. When I was going back again to those sex ed rallies, like when parents were protesting sex ed curriculum, the first couple rallies I went to, they had the flag the right side up. And then by about the 3rd one, they inverted it. And that's when they introduced us flipping our energy systems upside down. So that LBGT, elemental P agenda, has more behind it than what we just think that you have the right to decide what gender you want to be, or whether you should get your nads cut off or whatever, right? Like this whole thing is sick. But when we start to understand this, we realize they want our spirituality and our higher knowing up our butts, and they want us thinking with our ass. So this is all just a big psyop, and I'm going to tie it into the transhumanism. Harold Kautz Vela is a gentleman that I came across him a couple of years ago. It was in the Bases videos with Miles Johnson. And I was watching his interviews, and I found the man absolutely fascinating. And this is an interview, I just put down the words of what he had said. It was an Age of Truth interview. It was premiered December of last year. So he says traumas are intentionally imposed onto people because traumatized people are predictable. And I know a lot of people say Canadians are nice, and a lot of people say Canadians are stupid. And I'm not sure exactly what it is. I think there's a good mix in there, but I think a lot of people have been traumatized to the point right now they're just shell shocked. They don't know what to do. So listening to Harold talk, he's you stay in the observer position and just listen for the information is what I was doing. He talks about the archons, the demons. So it's kind of interesting. I'm getting information from more than one source. I have my own sources where I have my information, but then he's filling in some pieces for me. He says the Kundalini snake along the spine attacks the base and mental chakra. So that would be the red, the root, and the purple, the crown chakra. First and seventh, bypassing the heart. So the heart has a lot to do with this too. He says Yabalan is the god of Freemasonry, and those are the spider demons that sit as insects in the pineal gland and the sex chakras, the second and sixth chakra, bypassing the heart. And I've said this before at a rally I was at in Toronto. We went down to the food court at the Eaton Center, and there was a Gats Kids mural. It was a store, but there was a mural on the wall, on the window. And what it had was people, like children playing in the fall leaves, but they had a little girl because it was October thinking of Halloween with a spider on her head. So they're programming our minds to see this and accept this. So this is really interesting that he came across this. And then he says the third one is part octopus or kraken. It has 8 arms without a body swimming in the sea. It affects the solar plexus and the throat chakras, which are the third and the fifth chakra, bypassing the heart. All these numbers, 1 and 7, 2 and 6, and 3 and 5, all equal 8. And 8 is the number, it's in the positive, it's a transformation number. In the negative, it's the demonic number. So they're pushing the demonics onto us. So I was watching different doctors come up with what's in these vials, and Frank Zalewski, he had findings and he put them on Stu Peters' show. Obviously you can see the slide there. And the first one I looked and I thought, is that a parasite? And then when I'd seen Harold's Bella's comments, I thought, is that the Kundalini serpent? Wasn't 100% sure. I look at the other slide, and I think, is that the Kraken? I wasn't 100% sure. And then I look at Carrie Madej's findings. Now she has put she put a drop, I think, of whatever's in this vial on a microscope, and this is what she found. So she said it was moving. It was self-aware, and she got the impression it was watching her. So if we know anything about AI, we know it's spy software, that's what they're doing, but this would be inside the body if that was injected inside the body. Romola D did an excellent interview where she sat and talked about a lot of this, what was going on. Now, I have a different take on what some of her findings, what they mean, but it was because of her that I could put some of this together. So a big shout out for Romola D and the work that she did. So in a second video I watched of Carrie Madej, she talks about that this virus is called the Medusa. And if you look at Medusa, that was the head with all the snakes in the hair. And then she says there's another aspect of it called the Hail Hydra. And that's what the Hail Hydra means. It means all the snakes. Like, this is what they're putting in us. So are they putting in parasites, or are they putting in the actual snakes? So I thought this was interesting. And I looked at this. I just find it all interesting. I find these people fascinating that they're putting all this together. So when I think back to what I know and when I deal with working with dark energies, I came across, this was another Miles video. This woman had said what the spiritual parasites look like. Now, I know that they exist, and I know Miles worked in broadcast technology. He knows they exist, and he explains that for them to put the broadcast technology in, they have to do it at a frequency in a higher dimension, so it lands in the physical when people watch their TV or they're on their electronics. So this is all interesting, and I've had to help clear some of those. And if you look at the second row, you see the spider on the man's head. Well, that's what that looked like for that little girl in the mural on the wall. And I've seen them on people's heads, and I have clients who've seen them on people's heads. So it's not like people who can see in other dimensions, right? Other realities, they can see these things. So these were the spiders of Set created with radio broadcast technology. So this is all coming at us through the AI, but that's the transhuman agenda. So I'm tying this in. The one on the right is an octopus. She called it an octopus, but one of my clients drew that for me because she said it was on her back. And we were doing some other clearing, and we said, we'll get to it in a minute. And then after a while, she said, it's gone, it left. But it was waiting for her outside the house. Now, some of you people will think I'm nuts. And given the state of the world right now, I think we should start looking and reviewing everybody's report card, because there's a lot of insanity that is not, it's just illogical, the state of affairs on this planet right now. So I took it, and because she had written or drew me this a couple of years ago, it's not that after all this comes out that she's coming out with this. This is all pre to what this flu thing is all about. So one of my spiritual clearing books it has a page in there and it talks about how they send implants, probes, testing devices, and weapons. Sorry, I have a note into myself in there. And it says how they are sent to us. So these are sent from implants from this or other dimensions, implants from past lives, implants from ancestral inheritance, implants from ETs, implants and weapons by ETs from this or other dimensions, diabolic implants, devices, and weapons, astral implants, devices, and weapons, ET implants, devices, probes, and weapons, cult implants, which is religion, for anybody who thinks that it's not booby-trapped in some ways, devices and weapons, government, which would be military, devices, implants, and weapons, cords and triggers, and the very bottom one, electronically controlled devices. This is how they're programming our minds and trying to take over our consciousness. When you look at the very bottom, the choiceless distortions, they use it through hex, charms, spells, and modems. So they knew when they were giving the Internet of Things into your house, the web of things, the spider web of things, they knew they were creating a system that could send you negative energy. So just so we know, I don't know when this book was written, I've had it for a while myself, but they've known for quite some time that all of this is capable, but they don't teach it in the Western education system because they want people nice and stupid. So Max Spears, he was a secret soldier, like worked within the military, and I do believe they had merged him quite a bit with AI. Now, I quite enjoyed listening to Max because he would talk about things, that information he would share that I would not get anywhere else. He would talk about the blood types. He would talk about how they use blood types in militaries to be able to run an insurgence on the enemy. Like he's just fascinating if you get a chance to go back and look at any of his videos. But what he says is sound frequency that comes from the television releases the coiled serpent of the Kundalini at the base of the spine. And when I was listening to Harold Kaut speak, I was thinking of Max right away because he already knows this as well. Do you think the pricks in charge, these SOBs, these mad scientists that will take puppies and put a bag on them and stick ants in them so it'll eat the face of the dog, like Fauci, you think they don't know this stuff? So this is where we can stop being maybe as naive. We didn't know, and we didn't have all the dots to connect, but as we're learning about this, we can start to see that there is an agenda, but see how they're sending this energy to us. So on the left, there's an antique scrying mirror. So that's the black magic. And then I look on the right and I look at the cell phones right now, they're antique, they're scrying mirrors. The television sets, the modern television sets are scrying mirrors. But remember, this picture's back in the 50s when everybody would sit around the television and get their information. So we can see how some of this is the programming has come about. And it's black magic behind electronic transmission of demonic energies. Was it mind control? And this is what it's about. What I'm noticing too right now is some people can't be hypnotized. Those are the ones who aren't buying any of the nonsense. It's the ones who are more easily gulled into giving up their power that tend to be believing the system of the status quo. So I'm going to go back to Romola. So Romola, when she was talking in the one video she was doing, she was talking about nanoparticulates. So now we understand that the education system is part of this because you have to repeat something over and over and again so that people start to believe it. If you hear it from enough sources, well, it must be true, right? So she was talking about certain, she called them nanoparticulates. And I have known from this book that I use, my spiritual healing book, that I'd seen these words before, but what they talk about here are monoatomic elements. Now I've looked it up online. All I could find was monoatomic meant single element, single cell, single atom. But what she talked about, the ones in particular, was aluminum, bismuth, bromine, cadmium, calcium, chlorine, chromium, copper, iron, gold, nickel, potassium, selenium, silica, and silver. And when I heard that, I thought, oh my gosh, I know, I've seen those words before. So I went and looked up my book, and that's where I came up with this information. So these are already made in our bodies. We create these naturally in our bodies. And who she had quoted was, I think, Robert O. Young, Zalewski, and Carrie Madej, and said that all three had found these in the vials. And I'm wondering what's going to be in the booster. Is it going to be more of them? Because they need all of these ingredients to be able to hijack our consciousness. Back in 1918, Rudolf Steiner said in 100 years, they're going to create a shot that will separate the God particle from the human. It'll separate the consciousness from the human. And this is how they're doing it, by they're using our very body against us. So I just find it fascinating. And there's ways that we can bring this in naturally. So I apologize. There is a bit of a clearing on the top of this, but it's not complete on this slide. So when I found this out a while ago too, so the acupressure points. So understand, everything is energy. Everything happens in the unseen world before it lands in the physical world. So I also know just from the work I do that there's two main energy circuits in our system. So there's the two main, which is the governing, which starts at the perineum, comes up the back of the head to the top lip. And there's the central, again, starts at the perineum, comes up to the bottom lip. And all of these have acupressure points. So some charts you see will show lumbar in the back. They'll show the different parts of the body. But what I like about CV19 is your thymus. Your thymus is what is your immune system. And when you look at Donna Eden energy, she says tapping your thymus can help stimulate your immune system and bring it up. So they've actually targeted your thymus, your immune system, which is also your heart chakra. So they've targeted all of this, trying to destroy the very heart and soul of the human being. These guys are animals. They're beyond animals. That's an insult to animals. These people are psychopaths. They will go to any length to destroy humans for what? Money? Print it. It's paper. It's all it is, right? So this is just fascinating, the lengths they've gone to charge this energetically to try to take out the human, which is not going to happen. So knowledge is power. Enlightenment is the highest level of consciousness. This is the chart from David Hawkins, and David Hawkins has worked with the fellow who wrote the spiritual book in different pieces of literature that I have. And he says that consciousness can be measured on a scale from 0 to 1,000. And we know that we want to reach the frequency of love, because when we come from love in our hearts, this is where we can bring in higher consciousness and create a higher reality based in decency and the goodness in our hearts instead of out of fear. So he says love vibrates at 500, which the Solfeggio note says it's 528. When we look at enlightenment, enlightenment is your higher knowing. It's your innate knowing. It's the ability to bring up all of your physical reality with your emotional and your spiritual reality and your mentalism. And it's just knowing how to use your consciousness to create what you want. So enlightenment registers at 700 to 1,000. So we talk about love and light. Yeah, that's a bit of a snowflake saying, if you ask me, but I talk about love and truth. The enlightenment is the truth. So when you know things, you can't unknow them. That also helps bring your vibration up. So it's not just about asking to seek the love and feel the love. Yes, that is so important, because I look at our heart as our commander in chief. I look at our mind as our top general, and it's not Millie. Millie went to Harvard, he's CIA, but that's enough. Once you understand how this game is played, it's so simple to see how they hijack the information at the universities. Another story. So our heart is our commander in chief. Our mind is our top general. But it's our voice that is the communication box. And it's when we hear ourselves and we speak, that's when we bring our body comes in and listens to everything we say. That's when we start bringing in our consciousness and start creating a higher reality. So it's okay to go for the love. It's okay to go for the joy. It's okay to go for the peace. It's okay to go for the enlightenment. And because it's all truth. A lot of people say that we are living in fear, and I don't agree. I think we're living in cowardice, because there's a lot of so-called smart people who are choosing to stick their head in the sand or come out with just a stupid dialogue to try to convince you that what is happening is normal. And why I say that I think cowardice is the issue, what is the opposite of cowardice is courage. And William Tiller in the year 2000 had measured consciousness. He's from the University of Stanford, which I do like him. But he had measured the consciousness of the United States, and he said we were at 200, the level of 200. Well, we have 9/11 come down, towers come down, and all of a sudden people go back into fear, which is 100. So people are trying to break from fear to go back up to the courage that they were at, but they also know when you speak up, you get hurt. And there's a woman on Stu Peters, Karen Ruby, I think is her name, and she's speaking up. And her 12-year-old son, I shouldn't say he's 12 years old, I'm not familiar with his age. He was at school and they convinced him to get the shot without parental consent. Like, this is how sick these people are. If you think they're gonna teach your kids that taking a penis up the ass is what you do to be sexually diverse, or go and get your gonads chopped off or your breasts chopped off, if the teachers are this sick, you think they're not going to inject your child based on what they think they have the right to do? So now is an opportunity to really take a strong look at the education system. Do they have the best interest of humanity at heart? No, not just the children. They don't have the best interest of anybody at heart. And I'm wondering if they're not putting frequencies into the schools to make these people go along with an agenda that's just obscene. It's my just thoughts I've had. So I was watching Robert O. Young. This is an excerpt from an interview premiered with Charlie Ward on September 30th of this year. And Robert O. Young says, graphene oxide is a formidable material used as a biosensor for receiving and transmitting. Well, that's messages, receiving and transmitting information. This material is being directed also at the female reproductive and male reproductive organs. 80% of this package is going there and 10% to bone marrow. So it literally destroys your lymphocytes, any hope for immunity at all. So this is the way he talked. I wrote it down verbatim, so it might not be proper English. The balance goes into the heart. Hey, who knew? Which we already know in adolescence is a high risk factor for myocarditis and pericarditis. And it is absorbed by a specific area of the brain. This is called the corona radiata, and the very area that controls consciousness. So for people who are familiar with Spanish, the Spanish language, corona means crown, which is your crown chakra. So they're trying to take you away from your higher knowing. It is a pathway of fibers that ascend from the thalamus all the way up to the cortex. And all I could think of was the modem and all the fiber optic cables. So everything in the AI kingdom is mimicking us. We are the true intelligence. If we can, and it's a bit of a race, if we can wake ourselves up to know just how powerful we are, I think we're going to beat this. It also contains semifibers from the frontal and parietal lobes down to the subcortical cortical bodies, such as the basal ganglia, which I believe is your nervous system. This also incorporates brainstem and spinal cord. So all of our functions of us as human beings. So the educators at the universities are retards. They don't know how biology works. They don't know how the human condition works. They don't know our spiritual energies. They poo-poo our emotional energy. And because of them, we have a system, we have a society of idiots running around because nobody knows how to turn on our innate knowing. So I am so grateful for some of these doctors who've come out, but I don't look at the uniform and say it's the uniform that makes the person ever in any field of study. It's the consciousness, it's the soul, it's the very integrity of the person that is going to make some of these industries. And what we're seeing, a lot of the people in these industries don't care about anybody but themselves. It's funny, I went to a rally on Sunday and there was a doctor there from one of the local universities, and he was he didn't show he was upset, but he was not impressed that he was let go from the university or was going to be let go because he wouldn't take a certain medical procedure. So I went up and started showing him some of these slides. And as soon as I said, this is about stealing the spirituality and they're trying to create synthetic demons so that they can control us with AI, he would have nothing to do with it. So here I thought, this guy he's getting it, right? He's insulting the universities, he's calling him out for what they're doing. And it turns out, no, he still believes what he thinks is true about biology and whatever. He's just ticked off because they're letting him go. So I sat and I thought about this, and I only talked to him for a few minutes and I walked away. And it's kind of like it's a job interview for, as far as I'm concerned, for him. Is this guy have his shit together? Does he know what he's doing? No. And what I really want to encourage people to do is trust yourself. You don't trust anybody else right now because some people have different motives for not getting it right. Some people aren't awake. Some people are caught up on their piece of paper and their degree that says how great they are. They can't even comprehend anything outside of what they know. But if you know you're ready and you know you have an idea that you think can come to market that's going to help us within the consciousness community to awaken, to create a better world where our water and our air and our food isn't polluted, the land is restored back to what it should be, start getting your messages out. Start, create a YouTube channel, start a blog, do something that starts getting your information out there. Because now's the time for all of us to rise. This is what I just sensed this big time. But a week and a half ago, I sensed dark energies descend on North America. They were descending in the United States, and I thought, are they in Canada? And I got, yeah, they're in both. But what I think these dark energies are, they're going to inhabit people, and we're going to find out who's a white hat, who's a black hat, and who's an ass hat, because people are going to come out of the woodwork to do nasty things. And as much as I don't want to scare anybody, I think to pretend it's not happening is even a bigger lie than to know what the truth is. This is a video from William Tompkins. It's only a 4-minute video, and I'm going to share it with everybody because I think it's profound.
People all over this planet for at least 6,000 years have been influenced by extraterrestrials, the Dracos and the reptilians. They have taken the information that is in essentially every school on the planet, and they've modified the information. All history documentation in this country and on every country on the planet have been given lies about astronomy, lies about mathematics, lies about technical capabilities, lies about the universe, you name it, okay? Everything have been lies. Every PhD on this planet Whether they're scientific, whether they're medical, makes no difference. Every book that they read the 6 years they were in the university are lies. They're not telling the truth. They were not taught the truth. At that time, we had 34 admirals in the Navy. All of them had been through Annapolis. They learned how to learn everything about the Navy, everything about history, everything about mathematics, everything about astronomy, you name it. They learned all lies. So who did the Secretary of Navy Forrestal select for this job? Turns out Admiral Ricabada was not an American. He was born in Australia. The Secretary of the Navy selected an Australian man who had not been infected with the lies that the reptilians had taught us. He was freer of that. So the Secretary of the Navy was aware of this because he had been contacted by Nordic extraterrestrials, people here trying to help the United States. Okay? Very important point. So when I was selected, I hadn't been to the universities. I hadn't gotten the bad information. I hadn't been given the wrong information, and this is the reason I was selected, because I was knowledgeable of the Navy, I was knowledgeable of what the threats were, but I hadn't gone to the university and picked up all the lies. Very important.
Corey, how do you feel about that? That's a pretty bold cowboy statement that Tompkins just made here.
It was common knowledge in the programs. They would talk quite often about how the physics models that we're using down here on the planet are incorrect, and they have not been corrected on purpose. They use different hyperdimensional mathematics models than what are used down here. You know, the physics models, you know, we're still on this quantum and, you know, classical physics model.
Sure.
While, you know, they are deeply into this electroplasmic universe model of physics, which is the true model. And another thing he mentioned was that they wanted people that had not been, I guess, corrupted by this incorrect education. That is very common in the programs. That's why they were taking children in, because we were not front-loaded yet on different religious ideas, social programming. A lot of that hadn't occurred yet. So they had basically a blank slate to work with.
It is interesting, isn't it, the government studies that have shown that if they did disclosure, the two groups that would be the most hard hit by it would be religious people and scientists.
Yep, the academics.
So it's interesting, I like watching that video. So it's interesting that some people are well aware of what is going on this planet and that we're all being lied to. So when somebody comes out and tells you that they're smarter than you or know more than you, when you know how to trust yourself and listen to your own intuition and listen to how your body talks to you, you won't fall for that. And this is what I'm finding with that one professor that at the university, he wanted nothing to do with it. That didn't make him better or worse than me. I just looked at it as one down. I'll keep going till I find the right people who want to know about this information, right? I'm getting really good at rejection. Rejection has nothing to do with me. It has to do with how open somebody else is to being able to accept a different perspective or start looking at things to create new reality. I don't care who makes it or not, that's up to them. So this is kind of interesting, this slide here. Smash the illusion, shatter your trance, break out of the matrix, the system, think for yourself, and above all else, trust yourself. As William Tompkins said, he was in the space program. He didn't go to the universities. He was a young boy, I think, and when Pearl Harbor happened and they had a military base in Los Angeles where he lived, and he would go down onto the ships and started creating models exactly as they were, like 100% replicas the ships he was going on, and there was a store owner, from what I've seen in the videos, there was a store owner that wanted to showcase all of his models and put them in the windows. And when the admirals went by, they realized that this was such a great depiction that people could see what the radar was, even though the masses didn't know. The wrong people would know what it was, and that's how they brought him in. People say aliens and reptiles don't exist. I don't even go down this road. I don't care what people think. Everybody's got their own opinion, but people have a reptilian portion of the brain. Like, this is where we got to start asking. You don't think there's reptiles, but you've got a reptilian brain. This is what they're teaching in the schools, right? Question everything. Trust yourself. Ask to be shown the truth. Until we understand what it means to be uniquely human, no one is more qualified to be organically, naturally human than you. Trust yourself. The observer collapses the quantum wave function. Observe the corruption. Call out with your conscious intention. See the corruption fall, but also be able to create what you want, because we're manifesting our reality right now. And if we're thinking just negative things, that's what we're going to bring in. And remember, the best is yet to come. Love wins, truth wins. Stay positive and stay alert. So if you found this video helpful, I'm going to ask that you share it with your family and friends, and let's get the word out that no one's more qualified to be those who are awake, who are starting to question everything that's happening right now. And this is where we need to go, if you ask me. This is my